Hello and welcome to this special series of episodes called 29 Days of Magic. During Black History Month, the month of February, I'll be interviewing a Black woman a day who's from business and entrepreneurship. You name it, I'm going to have a chat with her. The idea for this is to show off the amazingness of Black women throughout various industries. I hope you take a listen, like, share, review, and be inspired by these incredible stories. Take a listen. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Munoz, CEO of the Cultural Communications Agency, D-Flash. Each episode, I bring in a different business leader who's doing some game-changing work. And this episode is no different. I am so excited to have Deborrah Ashley, who's a LinkedIn Black Belt, which means she's a strategist, she knows how to navigate it. It's going to be a fantastic and insightful conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Deborah.
Hi, Laura. How are you?
Good. Causing trouble as always.
Thanks for having me here.
Oh, my pleasure. It's fun. It's so much fun doing 29 Days of Magic because I'm always fascinated by the folks who get introduced to me or who self-select and come on board. And when reading that you're a LinkedIn Black Belt, it was like, oh, gotta have Deborah on because I need to learn more about this. Also, my LinkedIn strategy is not the best. So I'll be picking your brain quite a bit.
Sure.
But the first question of the podcast never changes. And so, Deborah, what was your first job?
Well, my first job was, and the interesting thing, because I graduated from school very early. So I believe I don't remember if I lied about my age or if I made up my age. Of course, I had my permit to get a job in retail. So it was a cashier at a store in New York called Steinbach's. It was Orbach's before, and then they switched over to Steinbach. So really, really fun first job.
And what did you do?
I was a cashier. I guess obviously at that point, before anything else, we put out the clothes on the floor, and I also rang up customers. But because I was so young, I believe I was 15.
Is that legal in New York?
Well, that's why I was like, okay, was I 16 or was I 15? But I believe I was 15. Pretty much most of my paycheck just went to buying all the cool, this is when Bonjour jeans were out and Sergio Valentes and stuff like that. So yeah.
Deborah, you're giving away your age.
I don't mind.
Sergio Valentes, wow. I was so little when that stuff came out. Fantastic. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so you go from being a cashier to a Black Belt on LinkedIn. What was that career journey like?
So, all right. So obviously, that I was a cashier before I got to college, and I'm from a Caribbean family. So it's not even, okay, what do you do after high school? You go to college.
Of course.
Yeah. So I went to college, got into marketing, which I absolutely loved. It was natural and it was very easy for me. As soon as I finished in marketing, I worked for a little while in the publishing industry in New York. And then I went over to work for a jewelry manufacturer as a production coordinator. While I was there, I worked with the product manager, the people who develop the entire product line and bring it to market. And I was really fascinated with that. So I pretty much looked up, how do you become a product manager? Of course, it's not just applying for the job. In the book, it said you have to get an MBA.
Yeah, slightly changed, like a little bit.
I know. I'm like, can't I just, I should have just, but we know what we know now. So applied to get my MBA, ended up going to Temple University, did a little bit of work, worked for the SBDC as part of my assistantship, my graduate assistantship. So I really got involved in economic development. But the fabulous part about that, I ended up getting a job in New York's fashion industry. And it was part of an organization that was funded by I believe the state, it could have been the federal level, helping New York-based or US-based designers to export their products overseas, to sell their products overseas. So I had this most wonderful job that entailed bringing, because these were smaller design houses, so bringing all of their products to Italy and England and these different fashion shows to meet with buyers and distributors. So isn't that nuts?
Yes.
Just fun and nuts. So, that, and I didn't, obviously I was still very young, right? I was in my early 20s, and the fashion industry is very cutthroat. But I was this, young girl wet behind the ears, and nothing, like, I didn't experience anything bad. I think the worst thing that I experienced, actually, so when we got back from the fashion shows, typically we would write up a report for the design houses, let them know what the buyers thought about their wares, and developed a strategy for them on moving forward. So I remember, I'm going to age myself again. I remember my director also came to the shows. He represented a group of clients. I represented a group of clients. And so I sent my report to him. Like I brought my report into his office just for him to check to make sure, because he's been doing this for a while. And then later on that day, I was at the fax machine.
The fax machine.
Exactly. Remember those, right? And I was at the fax machine picking something up, and I saw my report, but I was like, this looks weird. It didn't have my name on it. It had his name on it. So he had pretty much copied my report, changed the client name, and put his name on there. So yeah, that was like that kind of like that first experience of, oh, is this how we do things in this world? I didn't say anything, actually. I'm the type now that I would say something, but I didn't say anything at the time. At the time, because he's the director, right? Like, that was a mistake. Clearly it was a mistake. I'm seeing things. So I pretty much just like kept quiet and sat there. But later on, it kind of, the great thing about New York and being from New York, and when they do say, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, it gives you this mind of being 2 steps forward. So, you just have to kind of, and I'm not that, and, just growing up, I'm not that type. I grew up in a very overprotective environment, but it's still important to realize that, okay, there might be a person or two out there that's not for your best interest. So it helped me to kind of, open my voice, share my voice, be okay with speaking up for myself. And I've even become this person where if I see someone who is not standing up for themselves and they're either being told bad information or they're being bullied in some way, I will stand up for them. Like, my biggest thing is I never want to see anyone, being taken advantage of. So, and that could be the Leo in me also.
I love it. It's funny. Like, I can always tell when I have fellow Caribbean guests on there, because it's like, of course I'm going to college. What are you talking about?
Exactly. What else is there?
Like, what? No. Where is your family from?
Jamaica.
I had a feeling.
Really?
So a fellow Yachty.
Nice.
My parents are Jamaican and I'm from England. So I'm one of those kids.
Same here. My parents met in England, and that's where we were born. We're about in England.
South London in Croydon.
I was about to say, don't say Croydon.
Are you serious?
Yes, don't say. Let me see. What's the name of the street? Milford Lane. Is that a street?
What?
Is that the song?
Wait. Tell me you're joking.
No. Are we related?
Wait. I grew up at 50 Milford Road.
No.
Wait a minute.
We're still recording, of course, but this is amazing.
Wait a second. Where?
Easy. Okay, do you know the Burrells? Do you know the Ashley? Well, you would know because you know my last name's Ashley.
Yeah, I was 3 when we left.
Okay. Yeah.
And we lived there in the late. Well, my parents, I think, were there for like 10 years, maybe. We left in the early 80s.
Wow. Okay. We were already gone.
But my parents were there in the 70s. Yeah. And because before that they were in Mitcham. And oh my God.
Probably know my family.
I feel like we will.
Yeah, if they would, they know my family.
Cause I was like, she sounds like she's Jamaican English, but like, let me not say that right now.
Funny.
So we're probably cousins.
We are. And if not, we are. Yeah.
And if not, yes, we are.
Yes.
Oh my God, you're from Milford Road. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna tell my mother later.
Yes.
And this is why I love this podcast, because I get to meet so many amazing women. So like, also who could be relatives. But yeah, so like, like it's like, oh, because you come here and it's a completely different universe, but like you're like, oh, of course we're going to college. Of course you're gonna buy a house. Like that's what you do, right?
Exactly.
Like, you don't have a choice. Oh, you need another degree? Go get it.
I know. It's not just about applying for the job, it's about getting the degree to get the next job.
To the next job, and she's like, and have you bought a house yet? No, Mom. Why not? Like when I was your age, you know what? Oh my God. Like, yeah, my parents met in England and got married and lived there for 20 odd years and then came here.
That's amazing.
My parents left Jamaica in the early 60s, right after independence.
Okay.
And then randomly met. And that's kind of how it is. Yes.
Yeah, parents went to school and that's how they met.
Yeah, same. Like, wait, is your mom a nurse?
Yes, of course she's a nurse.
Of course, like my mom.
So in Jamaica, now my father worked after England. They were he was a pharmacist, so a hospital, Cornwall Regional Hospital, which they recruited him to head the pharmacy department. So that's where I think we lived there for 2 years before everything whatever the big thing was happening in Jamaica was too much. There was civil unrest.
Like,
so we
we're out
in America. I don't remember, but that's so funny.
Oh my gosh, that's so wild. Oh my gosh. The same street. Oh my gosh. See, the world is big. The world is actually very, very tiny. And I grew up and I'm in New York. So I'm a New Yorker. I mean, my family, we moved to New York because that's what you do as well. Like you leave England, you come to New York. That's
yes.
That is the stop. Mm-hmm. and we lived in Queens, then moved to Long Island.
Yeah. For sure. Okay, good. You have the whole roadmap. Or if you don't do Canada, of course.
Canada is the other. Those are the only options. Either Canada or New York. Like right. That is. There is no other way. You can do
the playbook, and you have to follow the playbook. If you leave Jamaica, there's a playbook. That's hilarious.
You do. It is kind of crazy to me that actually is the playbook. Where you're like, yep. Mm-hmm. And so when you talk to folks, they're like, of course, oh yeah, your parents did that too. Yeah, my parents did that too. Oh, your parents did that too? Yeah, same. Because like, you didn't have a choice. Like, that's literally how you grew up. But it's interesting because I always find it fascinating because our upbringing is just different than, our fellow Black American counterparts. Like, mm-hmm. We just grew up differently. Like our parents are crazy.
Exactly.
Well, we thought they were crazy when we were younger, but then when you get older, you realize, look, actually, they figured it out in all kinds of ways.
The discipline, and it's a very good job of how we were grown up, for sure.
It's fascinating. So we figured out we're definitely neighbors and possibly cousins, and this is ideal. So how do you become the LinkedIn Black belt? So like you've been doing all this great work in fashion, and then you're like, okay, now what?
Well, I always, in my mind, and it's probably from growing up, I'm like this nomad, right? So I was working at that time, I went to Temple University for grad school, was a commute into New York every single day until I was just like, I can't keep doing this. And then I ended up, this is like around the time of the Olympics, right? So then everyone's like, go to Atlanta, home of the brave, land of the free. You're a Black person, you have to be in Atlanta.
Oh yes, oh Jesus.
So my brother and sister were already living there. So I ended up moving to Atlanta, which was cool because I ended up as a product manager. This is like right around when startups were really booming. Ended up as a product manager for a tech startup firm. The funny thing with that, because I'm definitely a marketing person, I would be in these meetings with these engineers, and because they're building out this whole infrastructure as a software company. And they're talking about the different things like sandboxes and all of this stuff. And I'm just like, okay, I'm leading this meeting, but I have no idea what they're talking about. So it was kind of cool. I was kind of like in my, I guess, mid-20s. All of the people there were very, very young. And it's kind of like what's going on now. All of these very, very young kids are getting like millions of dollars to like, startup companies. So I did that for a while, ended up working for I think you're probably familiar with a company called Ideal Image. And then they moved me to the corporate office, worked there for a while. And then one day I woke up and I'm like, I'm kind of bored. I've had other businesses in the past, and I was like, I was on Instagram, and here's the crazy thing. I was on Instagram one day, and long before I knew that it was like this world of business owners and this whole community, and I was just sharing content. But then I decided to share some marketing content. Let me share some stuff that I know about marketing. And people were like fascinated. They were excited because I think my voice is very different than what you typically see online, just because I've lived it, right? Mm-hmm. So then someone tagged me in a post. It was a realtor looking for a marketing strategist to help her with her, to market herself online. And I'm like, wait a minute. There's these people who've never met you in their life, and they want you to help them, and they're going to pay you, and they've never met you. So yeah,
this just sounds awesome.
Exactly. It was like perfect timing, because it was about the time, I got to this part of my career where I was doing very well financially, but I was absolutely bored. So I had enough, this is Jamaican, right? I had enough money saved. That's a typical.
Oh, of course.
Right.
Right. For every rainy day.
Right. So I actually, and I was shocked. I thought my parents would think I was crazy, but I think as parents get older, they realize you're not going to stay in a company and retire until you're, 60, 70, 80. So I told them I'm actually going to leave and start my own business and do it full time. And they were excited for me. So I was doing I was doing Instagram for a while because that's the only platform I knew about. I happened to go to LinkedIn. I've always been on LinkedIn since 2009. I happened to go to LinkedIn just to update my profile, just to say that this is what I do now. 2 days later, 2 different people reached out and they wanted me to help them to write a marketing plan. And I'm like, what is going on?
You're like, okay.
But this was before Microsoft bought LinkedIn, so it was still about resumes and recruiters. So I didn't know there was this whole world of business owners on LinkedIn. I always call my people, they're brilliant at what they do. They're not great at marketing what they do. So that happened on LinkedIn, not a big deal, but LinkedIn to me was intimidating at that point. So I wasn't going to do anything on LinkedIn. I had those clients. I was still hanging out on Instagram. At that point, I found Facebook too, as a community of business owners. But I was still getting some clients from LinkedIn, but it's kind of like I definitely had a high level of imposter syndrome. So one day I was hanging out on LinkedIn, I decided to scroll the platform, and I was just seeing a lot of bad advice. And this kind of goes back to, I don't like to see others taken advantage of. I was just seeing a lot of bad advice about, here's how to use LinkedIn. Here is how to market yourself to get clients. And I'm thinking, that's not really, it's a little misleading what people are putting out there. So I decided to step up. Like, I'm the type that if I see, I don't have to necessarily criticize someone, but if I see someone just sharing really horrible, bad information, I will now speak up and start to share from a different place. So at least those people can question what they're sharing, because they're going to say, okay, this is kind of conflicting information. Can you share more? Versus going with just that bad advice. So I started to just like I was showing up on Instagram, I was showing up very heavy on LinkedIn, sharing some LinkedIn advice. And all of a sudden people were calling me like the queen of LinkedIn, LinkedIn black belt and all of this stuff. And of course I was like, wait a minute, that's not
Hold on.
Exactly. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't, but it's kind of cool because, for me, I've always wanted to be that Black woman, because you don't see a lot of Black women who step up and are really being shown on LinkedIn. You mostly see like older white men, right?
Exactly.
Thing. So I was like, yeah, I am the LinkedIn black belt. I'm going to accept that. I'm going to own it. Do it. Sorry?
You got to own it. That's who you are.
Exactly. And then from there, I was getting speaking engagements. I was getting, obviously, clients coming in from that. Because I think there were people watching my journey. That's a good lesson, that there are always people watching you. And they were like, oh my gosh, I've seen that you went from not being known on the platform to developing your personal brand really quickly. How did you do it? So yeah, I just kept on showing up. And the interesting thing, you know, obviously up until COVID, I did a conference, I guess it was last January or February. And I spoke at the conference and people knew me. Like, it's so funny when someone comes up to you and they're like, oh, you're the LinkedIn Black girl from LinkedIn. And I'm like, huh? I don't, you know, I'm an introvert actually by heart, you know, by nature. And I'm just like, okay, this is awkward because I have no idea who you are. So yeah, things like that happened. And here I am now. Last year, just really incredible. I had 1 million content views on my content on LinkedIn. So yeah, so cool.
Oh my gosh. And so like how, all right, so now I have to pick your brain. How, so what are some good tips for folks who are trying to optimize LinkedIn? Because I've seen, and even I'm doing this myself, I have seen LinkedIn be leveraged a lot more for my business and my personal career than any other platform, because it is sort of the professional resume, but in living, breathing form. And it's been fascinating to see how like my views have gone up, but the more stuff I push out, the more views that I get.
Right.
But it's actually all salient stuff. It's not like, you know, here's what I had for lunch.
No, it's
so
not
what
right.
so what are some like good, like helpful, easy tips folks can learn to kind of get started to help building out their profiles?
Yeah. So the biggest foundation will be the profile, because no matter whether someone takes the look, you know, they Google your name and they find you, that's typically going to be LinkedIn as the first two, you know, line items in Google, or they find your content, they're always going to go back to your profile because they're curious. So the biggest thing that you have to work on first would be the profile. Your banner, you want to remove that default blue banner because too many people have that, and you want to be able to use that to stand out from the crowd. I kind of call that the prime real estate. So when someone visits your profile, you have about what 3-4 seconds to really grab them, and your only job is to make them stay on the profile and read more. So you want to use that banner image to create a narrative of who you are and what you do and how you want to position yourself. The picture is going to be super important too, because that's the first introduction. When no longer, at least for now, in a place where someone's going to meet you at a networking event, they're going to meet you on LinkedIn. So you want to make sure that you have, it doesn't have to be a stuffy, dressed up look, but you want to make sure that you're representing your brand. You know, LinkedIn is mostly about developing your personal brand in order for people to fall in love with who you are and want to work with you. So the headline is going to be important too. And the headline's not necessarily about, you know, I'm this wonderful, amazing person. It's about what problem do you solve for the person who's interested in working with you. Whether you're a career professional or anything else, you're always solving a problem with the work that you do. So that headline's going to be really important. And it's really, I don't really like that I help, you know, so-and-so do X so they can get to this Y. It's more for me, I like if you talk about, you know, I guide or empower people to whatever that solution they need. If you do something very clean and simple and you avoid industry jargon, you will really connect to what they want. So it's less about being resume focused, which is more about you and your accomplishments, and being more customer or buyer focused, which is about what they need and want. So that would be helpful.
Those are great tips. And it's funny because like I changed my LinkedIn profile last summer to be more unapologetic about actually what I do.
Love it.
And it's fascinating how people have responded to that, because like you get the deal with me.
Exactly.
It's like, you know, and like, you know, one of the lines that someone once said to me, like, aren't you afraid? Because I use hammer, nails, and brains to get stuff done.
Love it. I love it. Wow.
And so, because I whenever I do my kind of elevator pitch, that's what I would say. And I remember someone saying to me, like, well, are you worried that people are going to not take you that seriously in your LinkedIn profile? Because you said, I'm like, no, you're going to get it. Like, you know that you're going to get someone who knows what they're doing, will be forceful to make it, will move mountains, but is always strategic. Like that's what that means. And
Right.
for folks who vibe with that and like get it, they're gonna be the best kind of clients for you. They're gonna be the best kind of partners. And folks who think that's weird, well, like just keep on scrolling. I'm like, those are people who I don't want to work with anyway. So
Yeah. And it also sounds like when you call in those type of customers, they're either on the they're okay with showing who they are versus being this stuffy mask-like image of themselves. So they're either in that category where they're okay with showing up unapologetically, or they might be the stuffy type who they want to show up more unapologetically. So either way, they're not going to judge you. They look up to you and they're just like, oh my God, this person is awesome. I need to get in their world. So yeah, I think it's a good way to push away those who are just not going to be the right type of client for you.
Yeah, it's kind of like dress for the job that you want.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in LinkedIn, in a way that is like, you know, you are doing that kind of dress rehearsal for the job that you want on Absolutely. This platform.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you don't bring your best you, then you won't be able to get there. So I'm sure building a business like this has not been the easiest thing in the world. What have been some challenges along the way, and how have you kind of gotten through them?
You know, I think the biggest challenge, because you know, in my corporate career, I've always been fairly successful. So my biggest challenge has been around the imposter syndrome. I came online, I just expected, oh, look, here I am. I have an MBA. Of course you want to hire me, but no one cares about that, unfortunately. They care someone on LinkedIn, I can say, but what I've found that people care more about is, can you help me solve the problem that I have? Even though I have a long experience in marketing, I wasn't really communicating that the right way because I just figured everyone would figure it out. Everyone would know. But I always say, like, if you don't tell people, they won't know. And if you're afraid to talk about yourself, you can still be humble, right? But I wouldn't suggest being modest. So if you're afraid of being your own cheerleader, if you're afraid of putting yourself out there, if you're afraid of talking about your accolades, then no one's going to know that you exist. And you could have the best solution for someone. You could do the most amazing work. But if no one knows that you exist, then what's the point, right? So yeah, that was the big problem for me. I remember when I was first hanging out on Facebook, I would do a lot of the Facebook groups, but I would be mostly a lurker. And we know there's a majority of people who lurk, especially on LinkedIn, versus who show up and post. And I remember, someone was sharing some content and I was just answering questions because I knew the answer to a specific question. And one lady said to me, well, how do you know all of this information? So I told her about my background. And she was like, if I had your background, I would be fully booked at this point. And it was like a year and a half where I was like pretty much struggling, not really struggling, but it was just like very hard for me to even meet clients. And that kind of woke me up. Like, you're right. I'm allowing others to show up confidently. And I'm the one who's the expert, So that
Awesome.
That was a big lesson for me.
Yeah, it's such a thing because sometimes you're like, well, do I have to do all this, or should I do all this? And getting that, like, well, they're doing this and doing way better. Like, wait a minute, like, okay, like I will figure this out and get to that level.
You have to know yourself sometimes.
You do. You absolutely do. Thinking about all of that, like, what do you think you'd probably tell 25-year-old Deborah?
What would I tell 25-year-old Deborah? Probably to have, and the funny thing, when I was younger, I would hear a lot of people say, have more fun. So have more fun with it. I think I was just and I'm still that type, very focused and, on my career and what's next and all of that stuff. So just really have more fun. Meet more people and leverage your relationships, like leverage your network and your relationships. You don't have to figure it out on your own.
Yes, the relationship building is like the glue of it all. And we have to remember that, like, we don't have to know every single thing. There are people out there who, if we build relationships with, we can ask them and they'll tell us. Because we can, there's that give and take where, like, we all have stuff that we can give and people and learn from other folks. Like, it can always be a reciprocal conversation and relationship that we can build.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the things I think, and I'm not quite sure where it came from, but growing up, maybe I'm the youngest, but I always thought I could
Same.
figure things out. Okay. We might be twins, actually. No, kidding. Yeah, so I always thought I could figure it out on my own. So when people want to do things for me, I would, it's weird because I'm not this type, but I would think, okay, what do they want? Like when
Right.
someone's like super nice to me and they're like, oh, I need to introduce you to so-and-so. And I'm like, okay.
You're like, why?
Yeah. So I'm cool with it now. Yeah, definitely. It's important to have champions who will go to bat for you.
That's so awesome and so necessary and so true. Oh yes, we might actually be twins. I'm the youngest of three, and I have two older brothers.
Oh, okay. I'm the youngest of three, but one brother, one sister.
Because see, we are. This is insane. I cannot.
Too funny.
Too funny.
We're so excited to have Soho Works as the sponsor for the 29 Days of Magic campaign. They're designed by Soho House, and their workspaces to help creative thinkers, businesses small and large, connect, collaborate, and grow. And it's where I'm recording all the episodes of 29 Days of Magic. It's a safe, wonderful, and collaborative experience. I'm currently in the Brooklyn location, but they have locations, one else in New York City, in the Meatpacking District, one in LA, 5 in the UK, and they give you that kind of home away from home feeling with all the tools, technology, equipment to help you do your best work. Like I said, it's an amazing location, feels safe. I've been able to meet some really awesome people, which you haven't been able to do a lot because of the fact of COVID. So it's been a wonderful experience being able to record here and help build community. So if you want to find out more information about it, please go to sohoworks.com to get more information and tell them I sent you. And now back to the show.
So, obviously, you're doing all this really great work on LinkedIn. You're getting all these amazing clients. What in the world do you do for self-care?
I have to practice a lot more self-care. So what I do in the mornings, I pretty much meditate just because I love because I'm more of a thinker. I am practicing tapping into my intuition and getting more from there. I'm told that I'm very intuitive and that I manifest easily. I mean, that's when I'm not overthinking it, right?
Right.
I'm trying to meditate a lot more so I can get a lot more, messages and signals and things like that. And then when I remember, I go to the store and I buy myself flowers. I'm trying to do it on a weekly basis. It doesn't always happen. But yeah, self-care is mostly the meditation in the mornings and then some affirmations that I do at night.
That's awesome. I love the buying yourself flowers thing. I try and do that at least once or twice a month.
Yeah.
I always proper Jamaican. I have to have fresh flowers in my house.
Nice. Love it.
I believe it's a rule or something. Again, in the playbook.
In the playbook, yeah. I try to do orchids, but they just don't want to stay with me longer than a month. So I'm like, okay, I won't do it. So.
Yeah, it ends up being roses because they last the longest. Like I've tried orchids, I've tried calla lilies, nothing lasts. So roses at least will get you a good 7 to 10 days.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to try those next.
Awesome. And then one final question for you. Do you have a give and or ask of the audience?
So a give, I always, from the time I was little, I've always been into personal development books. One book that I discovered very in my teens was, I'm not sure if you've read The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Very, very great book. It helps you to understand that a lot of things that go on, whether in your environment or anything else, it's not really about you. If you have experiences with someone, it might be things that they're going through. So with the 4 Agreements, it's about, be impeccable with your word. So it's really just, be who you say you are and show up the way that you want to and you need to. Don't take anything personal, which of course is about, if someone might be having a bad day, you never know what's going on in someone's life. So you should never take that personal. Don't make assumptions, same type of concept, and always do your best. And then if you show up that way, kind of like, in other words, kind of mind your own business, show up that way, and things will, I'm not going to say they always work out perfectly, but things will start to work out for you.
That's great and so true. I mean, I read the book when I was in college, and like I've tried to follow that along, and the hardest one is like it's not about you, because you're like, well, what have I done? Like, why are they so evil? And it's like oftentimes that's them. Yeah. And as hard as that is, like letting that kind of go, frees up your brain, frees up your heart, frees up just everything once you sort of like, not on me. Like, so it really provides some awesome advice. That's that is a great give, Deborah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, Deborah, it has been such a delight having a chat with you. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe we were neighbors. Like,
I know. Excited about this.
like, but the show, but this is also, you know, again, part of the way that I love doing this series, because I get to meet so many phenomenal women like yourself and just share amazing commonalities, and also let people know that you exist and you do this great work, and they should reach out to you and be like, come on, say hi to Deborah. So I'll put all the details in the show notes so folks can find you. But thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thanks so much, Laura. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. And that is our show.